So back in May 2017, I made a video where I was basically addressing the question of whether or not I think people should learn Kotlin or Java. So at the time, I had not spent any significant time whatsoever coding in the Kotlin language, and the gist of my answer was that go with what interests you, but in a more practical setting, at the time there weren't a great deal of good resources for building flexible and robust applications using Kotlin, and for primarily that reason alone, I didn't really advise beginners to prefer learning Kotlin over Java. What I thought I'd do today is give my perspective on this topic, having spent well over a year writing complicated, large-scale programs, at least relative to the small teams I work in my own projects, in Kotlin, and talking about why I will, if I can help it, always choose Kotlin over Java at this point for Android and web-based projects. So that's the primary discussion in this video. Now, in the other video, it was very not technical, whereas in this video, I'm actually going to focus in a little bit more on some technical and practical reasons why I prefer Kotlin over Java. So stay tuned, and hopefully you'll have a slightly easier time making this decision. So my first point is that Kotlin supports top-level functions, which are functions that sit outside the scope of a particular class or member. Now, this small difference, which is not available in Java, opens the door to some incredible features such as extensions, coroutines, and a variety of functional constructs which were impossible or at least very awkward in Java. In any case, a more practical benefit of top-level functions, which I can give you right now that's a little easier to take in, is that you can share functionality across a set of classes or objects which don't have to be in the same inheritance hierarchy without having to create another class full of static functions. Now, when targeting the JVM, it is important to note that Kotlin actually achieves this feature by turning our top-level functions into static member functions, but this happens under the hood, and we still get the benefits of less code, less class explosions, and some awesome functional constructs. So that's item number one. So for item number two, we have extension functions and properties, which can be top level as before. And as mentioned before, they provide an alternative to abstraction, i.e. using interfaces or abstract classes if you're coming from a Java background, to extend the functionality of existing sources without having to modify them. And this is the essence of the O in solid design principles, open-closed principle. So, for example, I love to use this kind of feature for things like mapping operations, which I need to use to map between data models and domain models, things like string validation and checking. You kind of get the idea here. Even creating asynchronous coroutine-based callbacks. These are all features which I managed to set up using extension functions and properties, and this truly is one of my favorite features of Kotlin because not only does it make your code more concise, but it can actually make it way more legible and easier to read at the same time. So really, really happy, and this is like seriously one of the biggest reasons why I friggin' love Kotlin. Now, finally, we have the asynchronous elephant in the room. So at this point, having worked with them for quite some time, I am happy to describe coroutines as revolutionary in terms of how it compares to traditional concurrency and threading options for Java. So I really love RxJava, and I will still use it in the Java projects that I have to work with. But I really didn't like what it did to my code. I love the tool, but anyone who's spent a whole bunch of time working in RxJava knows that you end up with these giant chained method calls and really messy, ugly kind of code, which works really beautifully if you wrote it yourself and you understand exactly what's going on, but it can be particularly difficult to teach to other people. So anyways, the thing about coroutines which really blew my mind is that one of its primary selling points is that you can write asynchronous code which normally must be written using this thing called continuation passing style, which is a big fancy word for coroutines. Sorry, a big fancy word for callbacks, asynchronous callbacks. And you can actually write that asynchronous code in direct style, and I'll throw up some code so you can see what I'm talking about. So that has basically eliminated callback hell from my applications. It's made my asynchronous code look as beautiful and seamless as my synchronous code. And for that, and just the number of different options we have for coroutines, and the fact that I'm still able to test them in unit tests, I am really ecstatic about having a platform level tool for handling concurrency and threading and things of that nature. So again, just to reiterate here, if coroutines are something that are like spooky and mysterious to you, which they certainly were to me, definitely invest the time in learning them, because you will not be disappointed. They really are amazing. So anyways, that's basically it for item number 3. So that's basically it for the technical reasons, but I wanted to weigh in again on this question of whether I think a beginner should learn Java or Kotlin. So at this current stage, I do feel like there are enough resources out there for learning Kotlin, enough open source code bases out there, enough support from, say, Google and the Android team, that I do think going straight into Kotlin is a safe option. Now, I would still like to mention, if you do learn Java ahead of time, there is going to be some carryover. The negative side of that is you will start to pick up some bad habits, which are kind of necessities in Java, which aren't necessarily necessities in the Kotlin programming language. So it's not going to be basically you learn Java and everything will carry over. What I would basically advise to people, which is the same thing I said in the previous video, start by going with what interests you. That really is the most important thing, because interest is tied directly to learning. And at this point, I do feel like there's enough resources out there that you can basically jump straight into building, say, for example, Android applications in Kotlin without having to deal with the headache of doing so in Java. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please do me a favor and hit the like button down below. Consider subscribing and supporting WiseAss on your preferred social media networks. And if you have any other questions about Kotlin, programming, Android, and so forth, then do consider leaving me a comment down below, and I might just get back to you in another video. Thank you for watching, and peace out.